It's time for the Property Podcast, where every week tens of thousands of property investors, new and experienced, join together to get news, knowledge and laughs at our expense. With me, Rob Bence.
And me, Rob Dix. Join us every Thursday morning for your weekly dose of property ideas and motivation. Then head over to our website at thepropertypodcast.com to keep the conversation going. Now though, let's get started.
Welcome to the Property Podcast. It is episode 49. I am Rob Bence. With me is Rob Dix. Hey Rob, how are you?
I am very well, thank you, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm superb, thank you. In a very good mood today.
Excellent. Good. Well, this episode should improve your mood even further, hopefully, because we're talking about essential property lessons from experienced investors. So you'll see why we've picked this theme later on, but there is going to be lots of great insights for you to take away and use in your own property investments. And then we've got a resource for you as well, which is possibly one of the geekiest yet, but you'll have to decide when we get to that bit.
Geeky but good. Don't be put off by geeky if you're really cool, because this can be cool too. If you're cool, this is cool. Yeah, the geeks are cool now. I can't keep up. Well, before we get off on a geeky tangent, let's keep focused and start the show off as we always like to and acknowledge our wonderful listeners. We have some iTunes reviews, Rob. First in from Jason, he says, a truly inspiring podcast. Whether you're seasoned or new to property investment, the Property Podcast is essential listening. Each episode is brimming with invaluable guidance on all things property. Rob and Rob have a fantastic rapport, which laid down the foundation for what can only be described as brilliantly delivered content. Thank you, Jason. Tammy says, first class, inspiring, informative, impeccable. Probably our shortest review, Tammy, but definitely one of the sweetest, so thank you. And Ben says, great podcast. I've written 3 reviews before, but they haven't made the list yet. I don't know what's happened there, Ben. We like to read them all out. So, as my reviews must be awful, I'll keep it simple. The Property Podcast, do you want a future or not? Your choice. Again, maybe too much, but seriously guys, you simply opened the door to a world that seems so simple. If I hadn't listened to you, I know I would have made so many more mistakes and would have found it more difficult to succeed. That's from Ben. So thank you. Thank you so much for your reviews. Please keep them coming. You know we love them. But I think we must be getting close to 200 now, Rob. I think we've got over 180, which is just balmy.
Yeah, that's mad, but brilliant. Who's going to be number 200? That's the question. If you haven't left a review yet, please do see if you can be that magic number. But even if you're not, whatever number you are, we absolutely love your reviews. So thank you for taking the time. Another thing we love, Rob, is voicemails, and we've got one of those right now.
Hi, Rob and Rob. Just wanted to say, doing a great job on the podcast. Really enjoying it. It's a great listen. My name's Matt. I'm currently saving up for my own property investment. It's going to take a while, but I'm definitely hell-bent on doing it. And I feel like when I finally have the money up to start my property investment, I'm definitely in good hands now I listen to the podcast. I wanted to share with you something that I thought you guys would find funny. It's a 4-bedroom semi-detached house for sale in Birmingham with a very interesting back garden. This person has really taken the garden shed concept to the next level. You guys, I don't want to spoil it for you, but you guys should check it out. I've sent you both a link. Thanks for doing the podcast. It's been really great. Thanks. Bye.
Well, thanks, Matt, for getting in touch. It's always great to receive a voicemail, as Rob said. The great article, we'll link to it in the show notes. Just so you know, we've made it easier for you to find the show notes now. So if you go to thepropertyhub.net/Beyond the Bricks, which is the name of this week's episode, then you can get straight to the show notes. That's thepropertyhub.net/Beyond the Bricks and go straight to the show notes and see what Matt sent our way. And Rob, I'm gutted this house has just been sold because I'm sure I would have put an offer in.
I know. I've just popped over now and, well, it still might fall through. You never know. But I don't know if we should spoil the surprise or let people to check it out for themselves. But it really is something I've never seen before.
So cheers to Matt for sending us that link. You'll see how much of a bad pun that is if you go to the show notes. But thanks, Matt. We appreciate the voicemail. If anyone else would like to leave a voicemail, just go to the website. It's very easy to do. Just click on Leave a Recording.
So, Rob, really interesting week for us this past week. We've been doing a little bit of networking, as we often do, but we've been networking outside our usual circles, perhaps. And we've been speaking to some top business people in several different areas. Would you like to share a bit about why we've been doing that and what we've got planned?
We've told the last couple of episodes that we've got something special coming up, and we've already told you that episode 50, we're going to do a short mini-series of about 5 podcasts on business, because property is a business. Rob and I love business. We have our own businesses, so we love talking about it. It's another passion for us. But you don't need to switch off if you don't run a business or have no intention to, because if you're a property investor, you have a business, whether you like it or not. I guarantee you will learn a lot from the perspectives of these business individuals that we're going to be bringing on. To highlight how important this is, we've never done an interview on the Property Podcast before. Rob's done interviews on Property Geek. You know, that's the main format of that show. I've even done an interview on Property News Radio. But we're up to episode 50 and we've never done interviews. So we're so excited about the level of people we're bringing to the show in the next few weeks.
We're still finalising the lineup, but maybe we can talk about a couple of the people who we've got confirmed. So one of them is, well, we couldn't be more excited about this. It's the guy who really is responsible for this whole thing. Dan Andrews from the Tropical MBA podcast is going to be our guest on the Property Podcast, which is just absolutely amazing because it was the love of his podcast that brought the two of us together and gave us the confidence to kind of go down this route. So the fact that we've got him coming onto the show is just phenomenal for us on a personal level, but it's also going to generate some really interesting insights and lessons because he's someone who's built up an incredible international business in some really interesting niches. You'll be very surprised when you hear his story. I think there's going to be a lot of lessons come from the way he's done that and the path that he's been on that's going to directly relate back to what we're all trying to do. So that is going to be, well, I couldn't be more excited about that one.
Yeah, a seriously inspiring guy. I class him as one of my business heroes. I probably won't tell him when we do the recording because I don't want to embarrass him. But the podcast, the quality of the stuff he puts out, I just find myself nodding away, agreeing with his insights to business. I just know all our listeners are going to get so much out to that interview. So super, super excited. And Rob, we've also got on the show the legendary John Lee Dumas.
Yeah, so we've both been on his podcast, Entrepreneur on Fire, and now he's going to return the favour for us. He's a man who's built up his business in an area that you wouldn't necessarily think that you could build such a big business around, but he's done it so quickly and he is absolutely killing it. So it'll be really interesting to find out how he's done that.
He's a great guy. He's really enthusiastic. He's got a great zest for life. He's literally within 2 years gone from, just a normal life to having one of the biggest podcasts in America. Now, that's a pretty big audience, and he's got a huge audience over in America. It's absolutely massive. I know a lot of our listeners also listen to his podcast already, and I'm sure quite a few more will do after the interview. But his approach to business, he's extremely transparent. He does monthly income reports so you can see how his business is getting on. That really appeals to me that he's so open with everything. Like we try to be on the Property Podcast with all our knowledge. He's very open on a business point of view as well. 2 great names for the podcast that we've got coming up. We've also got a best-selling author, and not you, Rob, an international best-selling author coming on. We'll give you more details next week. And a guy who doesn't mince his words when it comes to business, straight talking, but we both love his attitude. We've got that and a few more things up our sleeve for the next few weeks. So we're super excited. I hope you are too. I promise you, we're going to deliver you bags and bags and bags of value over the next few weeks. We're really pumped about what we've got for you.
And while we're dropping all these hints, shall we just say that we've got a very big personal announcement of our own coming up next week as well?
Episode 50, we had to make it big, and next week we're announcing our biggest project to date. Bigger than the Property Hub, bigger than the Property Podcast. That takes some doing. This has been months and months in the making. We've not really talked about it too much. A few people I've spoken to individually at RMP may know about it, but the majority of people don't. We're really excited, and we're going to base next week's episode on business and our insights to business as well. And you'll be able to directly link that to your property portfolio and how to run it more effectively as a business too. So we've said a lot, but we'll cover a lot more over the coming weeks. But Rob, if that wasn't enough, we've got a major announcement, haven't we?
Well, we have. So this is where we normally talk about the news this week. And the biggest news for me this week is that my book is out today. Woohoo!
Applause effect, please.
Thank you very much. So this is Beyond the Bricks, hence the title of the episode. after, over a year in the making, it's finally been released today. So if you were one of the people who were good enough to pre-order it, which many of you did, you should have had that dropping onto your doormat by now. It's just so exciting to have it out in the wild. I've already had such great feedback from people because I sent the book out to some hub members. I think I've picked about 20 people who expressed an interest in reading it early and giving me their feedback. And the emails I've had from them have just been amazing. They've just been so generous in their praise and their thoughts. And it feels like the book's doing what I intended it to. It's making people think, it's making people consider different perspectives and going, as the title suggests, beyond the bricks and mortar and thinking about how it fits into your personality and lifestyle. It's just so good to finally have it out there.
Well done, Rob. It's such an achievement to write one book, but to have two out on, and I know you've wrote other books as well on other subjects, but to have two out on property, the first one was such a success, and I'm sure that this one will be just as big, if not bigger, because I must admit, of the two, this is the one I'm more excited about.
If I suggest writing a third, please tell me not to. It always seems like such a great idea, and it's always such hard work. I always say never again, but we will see. I'm happy with how this one's come out.
It's incredible, really. People pick up books, I'm the same, and you read them and go, oh, that was good. And you don't really think about the work that's gone into a book when you read it, and all the effort and the stress and the joy and the tears. You know, it's all there, all when you put that book together. It's interesting because normally I just pick a book up, read it, digest it. Yeah, that was good, that wasn't, and move on. You don't think about the effort that's gone into it. So well done, Rob. Great effort.
Thank you very much. Well, that links pretty well into our topic of the week, which this week we're calling Essential Property Lessons from Experienced Investors. So this ties into the book. If you don't know, the concept is I went out and I interviewed 9 very successful investors who'd all found success in different ways. Everyone has their lessons to share. There are hundreds of lessons in there. Some of them contradict each other, as you would expect. People have different views on things. But there are some lessons that came up again and again. We thought that for this episode, we'd pull out 5 lessons that came up a lot in the book, but also we've kind of noticed over time from the people we've spoken to and the experiences that we've had in property outside of that. Because we reckon that these lessons come up so often that it shows that they are pretty fundamental. Whichever strategy you're following, whatever you're trying to do, whatever your goal is, these are all fairly fundamental concepts to understand.
They are. And the first lesson is one that really resonates with me, and it's results follow focus. Results follow focus. The people who got the quickest results weren't those with the most money behind them, which is what a lot of people do believe, but it's actually the ones who had a clear plan, a clear focus on where they're trying to get to, a goal in mind and a strategy in place. Even those in the book that didn't have a plan at the start found their progress really exploded when they settled on a repeatable business model that they understood in a lot of detail. But it's natural for finding focus to take time. It should be your aim, but not necessarily happen overnight. Even those who started out purely as accidental landlords got there in the end. When I speak to property investors, I ask them what their goals are. The majority of people don't know because it's not a natural thing to do. You wake up, have your cereal, set some goals. Some people do, but the majority of people don't. To think about your long-term goals and how you're going to get there isn't a natural process. But the sooner you start that process, the more successful you'll be.
Yeah, exactly. And the second lesson really ties into that. This is something that I've termed property is theft. So in other words, if you see something that's working for someone else, nick it. There are no prizes for originality in property. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you see something that's working and you think that it's going to work for you in the same way, in other words, that you've kind of got the same preferences and skills and you want to get to the same place, then just steal it. This came up with almost everyone I interviewed in the book. And maybe it's more charitable to call it modeling someone's success, but it is basically stealing. And I think that's absolutely fine. And there shouldn't be a negative connotation around that. Because you don't have to come up with some amazing, elaborate strategy, some financial model, anything like that. Just spot something that works and take it for yourself. Maybe adapt it a bit, but just take it. And this also goes for if you've got something that's working for you, then just keep doing that as well. Often we hear, and a few people have said in the hub, that their property strategy is boring and they've kind of almost sound apologetic about setting out what their strategy is. There is nothing wrong with boring. If something works for you, it works. And maybe you want to have some interesting stories for your autobiography, but I think more of a priority is probably having the financial stability in the future that we're all aiming for. I think that's a really big lesson. The caveat to that is if you do see a strategy that's working for someone else and you want to copy it, do think about how it would fit in with your lifestyle. Do you want their life? You might want their money, but do you want their life? And are you willing to do the things that they did? Other than that, I think it's important to note that there are no prizes for excitement or originality.
Okay, so lesson number 3 is risk is relative. Don't let other people tell you how to sleep. So what do we mean by that? Well, property is a risk. And compared to keeping your money under the mattress, it's a bigger risk. But risk comes in many forms. Mark in a book, people would think he's mad for the way he leveraged and borrowing as much as he could. But he sleeps better with money in the bank than with an extra bit of cash flow. Now, Serena is totally in the LHA market, so her properties are let out to people on benefits, which many people would think is very risky. But she finds it easy to manage the risk and would be more worried with professional tenants. So the lesson is, someone will always be on hand to tell you that you're taking a crazy risk. But as long as you've done your own research, you can feel free to ignore them. You know, people will tell you that you're crazy just for buying a normal buy-to-let property with a great cash flow. Why? An asset that goes up in value over time, that has a great cash flow, that's in a good area. I could think of a lot more riskier things you could do. But because if people themselves are uncomfortable with it, they'll try and make you uncomfortable with it. Beware of those people.
Definitely. And even among people who know what they're talking about, they might be sort of telling you something for what they think is your own good. They might be telling you something's a risk because they're trying to warn you off it. But that's only a risk in their mind in terms of like how they perceive that risk and what risks they're comfortable with. So we're not saying be stubborn and never listen to anyone, but we are saying, like, you know, listen to everyone and then take your own view on things. You've got to think about what kind of risks you're comfortable with and what steps you can take to manage those risks. And then it's you that's got to live with your decisions in the end. It's not them. By all means, take advice, but always do what you feel is right in the end, rather than shying away from something just because someone else says so. Okay, lesson number 4, tenants are customers. So of the people I spoke to for the book, they all supplied different standards of accommodation for different markets, but they never lost sight of the fact that the tenant is a customer. So they provided what that market wanted. And the way that they dealt with their customers was very different. So some of them have very personal relationships with their tenants, and others had never met their tenants. But they always went into it knowing who their market was and giving a lot of thought to what that market would want. So they went into it by kind of thinking, as a business would, who is my customer base, giving them what they thought they wanted. And then they also supplied, you know, what you'd think of as customer service. If problems came up, they'd fix them immediately. They'd either fix them themselves or make sure that their agent was on the case. The lesson is, understand your target market first before you buy the property and put a lot of thought into what they want and whether that property will be suitable to them. And if you're doing a refurb, think about the standard of refurb that they want and the kind of things they're going to want, rather than just kind of putting in what you think is probably right, because your target tenant might be a person like you or might not be. This comes down to going like beyond the actual decor as well. So Mark in the book, for example, he knew that the tenants he was attracting would value security. So he offered them a written promise of long tenancies. And that's a really unusual thing to do, but he knew what it was that they wanted, and it aligned with what he wanted, and so he found a way of giving that to them. Understand the target market, then either yourself or through an agent, provide a great service. And if you do that, you'll find that the tenants will stay for longer. And even if you have to incur expenses to fix problems that come up, it's going to be cheaper to fix them than it is to lose a tenant and have to do the work later in the end anyway.
There's a really interesting conversation in the hub that talks about how you treat your tenants, your customers. And we'll link to it in the show notes. And some people are a little bit more hands-on and like to deliver, chocolates at Christmas and, a bottle of wine. And some are completely hands-off. Now, I said in the forum, the way I deliver good service to my tenants is I give them a good property at a good price and I sort things out quickly. So I react to issues. I've been unlucky in the last couple of months. I've had a boiler that's broke on me, so a brand new boiler, and a washer dryer. I didn't take 5 weeks to shop around while I could get the best deal while those tenants went without heating or the ability to wash their clothes. I acted very, very quickly. So fortunately, I had good systems in place, so it didn't take up a lot of my time, but I acted very quickly, so my tenants/customers were well looked after. People sometimes lose sight that there's actually human beings living in their properties. Property is a business, but with businesses come customers. And if you don't look after your customers, you won't have a business. So our last lesson that we're taking away from this is systems will set you free. Now, in the book, Lisa had the system for refurbs. So she would just say, same again, and it would be done to her spec. Arsh had the system for getting paid by LHA tenants, which he now finds easy while other people struggle. Gavin created systems around parts of his business, employed other people to execute them, then generated an extra income stream by offering those services to other investors. Property is a business, and a business runs on systems. The more systematic you can be, the better results you'll get in a smaller amount of time. Then you can give your written systems to someone else as an operations manual, so they can run that business for you.
Yeah, so this ties into the run of episodes we've got coming up, really, doesn't it? It's like property is a business, and the more that you treat it as one, the easier you're going to make life for yourself, because it does mean that you can scale up. If you've got a job, it's going to take up less of your time. You can manage more properties and acquire more properties in the same amount of time, and you can eventually pass off bits of that business and work on your business rather than in your business if you want to.
Absolutely. And I'm really looking forward to these episodes we've got coming up, because hopefully that highlights how closely related business and property are.
These are lessons that might seem quite basic on the face of it, but that doesn't make them any less important. They are the things that came up time and time again in my interviews. We've talked about many of them before on the podcast as well. The fact that they occur that often means that they must be pretty fundamental. So that's why we wanted to run through them today. These are the kinds of things that whatever you build on top of them, whatever kind of property you go for, whatever your strategy, whatever your goal, whatever you're layering on top, and if you've got a good understanding of these and you keep them in mind, then it means you've got a far better chance of getting the result you want at the end.
To add a sneaky bonus one in, this relates to all points. Take action. All these people didn't sit back. They took action. So, as Rob said, you could say, well, some of these points are a bit simplistic. They may be simplistic, but if you don't implement them, then you're going to be getting nowhere. Focus on your end game. Follow other people's ideas that work. Be comfortable with risk. Look after your tenants. And set systems up that make your business run more efficiently. It's all good. It's all good stuff. But you have to go out and implement them. So you may be listening to this podcast and you may be going, oh yeah, good ideas. And then suddenly you're off doing something else. If you're not doing some of these things, stop the podcast, make a note, set a reminder to put some time aside to implement them into your property business. Because just listening to content is very different to actioning on it. So make sure you take action, because that's what all these people have in common too, is they're people who take action.
Yep. Well said. One thing that kept coming up throughout that was systems. And Rob, you've got a belter of a resource of the week, which can take systems to some pretty geeky extremes.
I love this. Okay. It's called If This, Then That. IFTTT. IFTTT. You can Google it, but of course it will be in the show notes. It's a tool that helps automation, or put another way, it's a tool that helps you link applications. So we've mentioned Zapier before. It's very similar to Zapier, but actually it's free. How do you use it? Well, let's give you some real examples. I use it in two ways. One of the things I do is in Gmail. If I star an email, then it'll get sent to a Trello board, and I know there's an action to be done. So it goes to my action inbox in Trello. So rather than me keeping it in Gmail as a reminder, or then having to go and type it somewhere else as a to-do, all I need to do is click star and it's in there. So that system there saves me a few minutes every time. A few minutes a day equals hours, if not days, over a year. So that's one way I use it. Another way, more of a leisure use this time I use it, is if I'm in Twitter and I see some good content, which I often do, I might not have the opportunity to sit and read it there and then, but I'll really want to get back to it but don't want to forget it. If I star a tweet, If This Then That kicks in, it'll fire that tweet over to Evernote, another resource of the week that we absolutely love, and I can go to Evernote and read it at my leisure later on in the day or later in the week or whenever. So that's two ways I use this resource. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of recipes. That's how they describe these link-ups. Recipes that you can use. Go and have a look. They give you plenty of suggestions. There's some really, really clever ones. But it's free, so go and have a look, have a play around. You might just do some for fun, or you might do some to systemize things like I have.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you might play around with it for 20 minutes and kind of feel like you're wasting time. But after 20-minute setup, you could end up having all these things which might just save you 10 seconds a time every time it happens. But over a period of months, that could actually end up saving you a lot of time. And it's quite fun geeking out as well, of course. We're putting together a course for the Property Hub Plus at the moment called the Paperless Property System. And this is one of the things in there. There's an absolute ton. And we sort of map out exactly how to systemize your business, remove paper from the equation, and you tie together a lot of these tools that we've talked about. And this is just part of the picture, but it's been really fun doing that and putting that course together because it does just kind of bring home how many more efficient ways there are of doing things. And if you just start to dig into a little bit, it can all add up to quite a big difference.
It certainly can. Okay, Rob, we've packed in a lot this week, so hopefully we've been efficient. But next week, we've got episode number 50, the biggie, the special, the one we're really excited about, the business episode.
Yeah, so episode 50, we've obviously got to make it a good one. We've got our big announcement that we trailed earlier. Hopefully we've got some lessons to pass on because we've both done a fair bit of stuff in our time. We've learnt a lot along the way. We've both got our own businesses. So hopefully we're going to condense that down into some really interesting lessons that you can take away.
Absolutely. And remember, support Rob, buy his book because a lot of effort's gone into this book. I know you'll love it. If you don't, write me an email and I'll write an angry one back. I'm only joking. It's a great book. I think it's fantastic. It's really exciting. I love reading inspirational books, you know, about people who've been there and done it. And this book is great. There's nothing like this in property, you know, where we can follow people who've done well. Yes, you can read books and guides of people who've done well, but that's their system. You've got multiple systems here that you can follow. You can pick and choose what fits for you. I just think it's a great idea that hasn't been done before, and I'm sure, Rob, it'll be super successful. So once again, well done.
Thank you. I hope so. And if you've got any thoughts to share on it or you've got questions about it, having read it, then I'm going to be setting up a thread in the Property Hub where we can discuss it. And if you've got any questions that based on it, I might be able to sort of throw some things in that I learned or that came up during the interviews that didn't make the final cut. So yeah, do get over to the hub where you can discuss that and lots of other exciting things.
Super. Well, that's us for another week, Rob. I'm super excited about next week. I'm already wishing the week away to get there. But until then, thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic week and we'll speak with you soon.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to The Property Podcast. Make sure you join our mailing list at thepropertypodcast.com.
And remember, we love 5-star reviews. Rob even loves them more than air miles.